Hello, everyone. Hopefully you know who I am. It's Zap from the Entrepreneur Center, your Renew Nashville and Membership Program Manager. Thanks for everyone for joining us virtually. As just a quick update, I'm super excited. I'll be sending out an email later today detailing more about this event, but this coming Monday, we will be hosting an open house, socially distant. You have to sign up to go with the pod, where we will be giving tours of the EC, tours of our new video studio where entrepreneurs can sign up to record professional videos using our equipment, free headshots, and then the mayor will be making a guest appearance. So we're super stoked about that. In the meantime, though, Renew Nashville is up and running, and I'm so excited to have John Loar here as part of our CEO Story series. So we first heard from a barbershop and really how they're just trying to get through COVID. Then we heard from an events company who totally pivoted to the virtual world. So bringing Music City Baseball here, I think is such an exciting and interesting addition. So thanks so much, John, for kind of joining us today to tell that story. Anyways, this will be more of like a flexible Q&A. So feel free to type something in the chat and I might call on you if you do have a question. Hardest thing about Zoom is that we can't give a round of applause, but we can just take a moment to imagine a ton of people super excited to hear John speak. Anyways, again, thank you, John. I think it'd be great to get started if you can tell the audience a little bit about kind of your background and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on today and look forward to the conversation. And again, it really is a Q&A session because I want to work it around your format more than just a presentation. The background on me and my involvement in Nashville is that I've been living in Nashville for about a little over 2 years. I started looking at the market about 3.5, 4 years ago when Megan Berry was in office. And it was the shorter version is that after helping on the Miami Marlins acquisition with Dave Stewart and his investment group, Tony La Russa and I were involved on that. Just advising. My role was really more focused in that regard on the real estate side. I was looking at an underperforming asset, facility and location, and just trying to figure out how to put a real estate kind of entertainment district around that to help obviously help increase the revenues and help facilitate the team in being a revenue contributor to Major League Baseball. So. After I did that project, I was asked to look at relocation or expansion market potentials in the U.S. and 2 markets and internationally, which were Mexico and Montreal. Nashville was one of the markets. And as you can imagine, there's a variety of things that sort of factor into that. But the underlying sort of theme was, is there a location? Can you build a private ballpark or can one be built? Because if there's no ballpark, there's no baseball. And really, nowhere in the U.S. is there a market where a team can just relocate. So that's sort of the pathway. And then the real underlying, value was, is there, what markets in the U.S. if a team was going to relocate and or expansion being part of a conversation in the future would be a revenue contributor to the Major League Baseball and how that system works with revenue share. So after I completed the work, I told our group that this is a market that 1 or 2 markets that we felt, and Vegas was the other one for different reasons, that we felt compelling enough that we felt that if we went to the market, did some additional work, and either worked on that intersection of relocation or expansion, that Nashville is a Major League Baseball city. We feel that it can be a revenue contributor. We feel that there's real estate opportunities and that there's a potential to privately finance a ballpark and really create a family sports and entertainment environment. So that's really the background of what we've been doing for 2 years. It's really a 3-year objective. We're heading into the 2nd year of that 3-year. Our next year is really more focused on securing a location and making sure that we put together the proposal that we're going to be presenting to the Major League Baseball owners and executives at the winter meetings in Nashville in 2021.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little more? I'm really interested in diving deeper of why Nashville? You kind of mentioned a few reasons, but what really makes this city unique that it could attract this type of opportunity?
Well, I mean, for a lot of reasons, I think all of us are here, but I think it's the growth, and the projected growth in the market. It's the improvements to it's the central location. It's the expansion of the airport where this market has been over the last 5 years and where it's projected to go. I think it's, one of the markets that, I think that, from Major League Baseball standpoint, it connects a different, group of people to the game, because if you could center a ballpark around entertainment, where it's more of a music venue, residencies, convention uses, corporate uses, and the fact that when you look at the trend with all the other sports teams, existing sports teams, it's been a dramatic increase in people coming from out of town to just come to Nashville for a reason to come to Nashville, but using that game as an excuse. And you've seen that at Titans games, at Predators games, and that also helps. So the attendance factor there is, in the optics for Major League Baseball, are interesting. Kind of the connection with the music industry and a younger crowd, the technology crowd. I think it's appealing to, and it's the location. I mean, the opportunity to put a team in this market, creates the ability to have 32 teams, do a realignment, potentially in a national league, and competing against Atlanta, Cincinnati, St. Louis, Chicago, which are really close and natural rivalries, and also helps on the location side and the travel. But those are a lot of the reasons why this market is appealing.
Mm-hmm. What did you think about Nashville? Did you see last year they won Best Sports City? I forget what magazine, but it was, and that was a huge shock to me as a new resident. What did you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think it just validates what we've felt over the last, 3 years of looking at the market. And I think it validates, and helps with Major League Baseball's, view of this market as well. I mean, the public statement, and we obviously don't have any support from MLB at this point, is that there's no expansion until Tampa and Oakland are resolved in relocation mostly facility issues. But I mean, I think we're pretty convinced that Nashville is the number one market, for MLB to either relocate or expand to, for the reasons I mentioned.
Mm-hmm. A lot of our entrepreneurs, bringing an MLB team to town, that is a huge Goliath sort of project. Can you kind of talk about the very early sort of idea stage and how that has come together over time? But like from the very sort of granular beginning, and what pieces did you have to put in place to get this actually moving to where you are now?
I mean, obviously it's a daunting task, and with no guarantees. In my experience in sports acquisitions, over the years, and just in what I've learned, and the successes and more importantly, the failures, or wouldn't call them failures, but failure from not getting the franchise or not getting the team, you just learn a great deal, and you learn about what all the components are that are required. And really, I mean, it's a simplistic business from how do you make money, how do you spend money, but it's very complicated with regards to what does it take, for a market to be a revenue generator? What does it take to build a ballpark? How does the real estate piece fit into it? And then, how does the media component fit into it with, now and as you look in the future? So I try to simplify it in 4 categories. It's baseball, National Stars Baseball Club. It's the larger real estate development opportunity. And then it's what I call the ballpark or venue, which is the, how revenues you keep and revenues you share. And then the media component to it is the 4th category or vertical. And, that is obviously a revenue driver. A big part of that is Atlanta has always controlled the largest footprint in sports, and specifically in baseball. As their deal expires in 2023 with Fox Sports, now Sinclair, there's a big opportunity for companies that are traditional or non-traditional, which would be like an Amazon. Traditional would be like a Fox Sports or Sinclair, to look at this market and to provide a content platform for a sports channel, basically, to have an umbrella that sports could get fed into, whether it's baseball, hockey, and soccer, a combination of. But there's obviously a big opportunity there as well.
Can you talk about what does this look like with the Nashville Sounds? How does that come together?
Well, when I looked at the market in the beginning, I mean, it was just from the standpoint of just evaluating it. When realized that it really, if you look at this market compared to Charlotte, Raleigh, and others, in our opinion, that it's the number one market in what we call the South market, and if you're looking at it from all the verticals that I've mentioned to you, and it's really about, can you build a privately financed ballpark? The Sounds. So knowing that the Sounds have been here forever, and it's obviously tied to Major League Baseball and their agreement with them, is that we think that as part of our feasibility analysis that we can factor a solution in there because of their their area where they've developed. I think it could be a revenue generator within a neighborhood, and I think it could be complementary to a Major League Baseball franchise. There's not really an example of a team being that close, but we're certainly going to explore that. We also know that as part of our obligation that we're going to have to consider or roll that bond obligation into our plan, and then just work to be a good neighbor to see if we can coexist together.
What was I going to ask? Do you feel as though you're competing against like the soccer stadium coming to town, and can you dive in a little bit deeper with that?
We don't. We think that, I think the feasibility and economic analysis that we're doing in the market is a pretty extensive study, and we do it with CSL out of Dallas. I think what we look at is, really it's revenues around a ballpark, right? And it's taking away either fans from them or them taking away fans from us. I think it's a little bit different fan base. I think if you look at half of our stadium being filled by outside fans or fans visiting fans, baseball, that obviously works. There is a little bit of an overlap with soccer. I think one of the biggest things is the corporate support, right? Selling suites and things like that, and just the overall general corporate support. Is there enough to go around for 4 professional teams? We feel that with the growth of Nashville and some of the new companies that are going to be coming in, we feel that there is, and we've carefully watched the soccer process. I think the soccer owner, John Ingram's an amazing man, and his family's amazing what they've done for this community. And I hope to do something, at least our group be able to do something similar. I don't think that he feels that it's competitive, and we've had that conversation, and I think he's supportive of our efforts, and we're obviously very supportive of his efforts. I went to the first game, and I was absolutely shocked that 56,000 people showed up there. And I think it's another sort of reinforcement that this market is really hungry for entertainment, and sports is obviously entertainment.
Mm-hmm. Kind of tied to that, we had a question in the chat from Steven. The soccer stadium has really gotten a lot of pushback because a lot of the community is saying that, it's making Nashville lose its little big town feel. Is that a concern for you all, or what would you say to kind of those critics?
I don't know that I can answer everybody's question the way they want to hear it, and that it resonates with them and makes sense. You're obviously not going to get support of everybody. I think what our underlying objective is to bring Major League Baseball to Nashville. Place that team in a facility that is more than a baseball facility or a ballpark, that is truly a world-class entertainment venue, so that you can have residencies and things like that, here. Privately finance that so that it doesn't cost the city any money. Have those revenues support the city, and in a way, and help maybe contribute to, if we're successful on doing something on the Titans campus, contribute to the Titans solution of restructuring or rebuilding their facility. And really underlying is building a family sports and entertainment option, on the East Bank. I don't think you want another downtown built over here. I think what we're proposing, and we hope to propose this to the state and to the Metro Council in the city and the mayor's office, is, take a look at what we're proposing on the East Bank. It's a family sports and entertainment district. We're hoping to include, maybe potentially have TPAC as part of that, and create a true entertainment destination that's very complementary, to what's downtown. So I don't think that answers the question or the concern, but it just tells you what our initiative is.
That's awesome. And I'm not necessarily an expert kind of in this. I don't think a lot of our audiences. So I'd love to hear more about like the private financing options versus a lot of stadiums, I believe, are kind of publicly financed and those get criticized. And then when you're talking about, yeah, this world-class entertainment venue, tell me a little bit more. Like what sort of events do you see that bringing to Nashville? What sort of tourism do you see that bringing to Nashville besides just MLB, if you're really trying to make this so much bigger than that?
Well, the ballpark, in our opinion, after researching and doing a lot of analysis of other locations, including Atlanta, we feel that the design in general is going to be more open, less, constricted by suites, more gathering areas in general. And this is all pre-COVID, and we're still focused on that, as part of our objective here. I think our partner, ASM Global, which is, connected to AEG and that merger, they run and operate over 327 venues around the world. And, Chuck Steedman, who's part of that organization, their organization could not be more excited about this. Depending on the location, which is a disclosure, we feel that we can privately finance a ballpark based on revenues. And those revenues consist of way more than 81 baseball games or more if we're lucky, which is 22% of the use. We plan to build a covered and conditioned facility that can be used when I mentioned residencies like Vegas, right? So if, Eric Church, Mickey Guyton, Garth Brooks, Darius Rucker, Justin Timberlake want to play here for a month, you're building an airport that can accommodate that. People are going to be coming from Asia. They're going to be coming from Europe. They're going to come from all over the United States to see them and play here, stay in the hotels, spend money, downtown and in this district. And I think that's part of the initiative, and it provides a little bit of diversity, and complement to the honky tonks, right? So, more bachelor parties or, a combination of more families, more couples, more families, more kids. So that's, we think that helps. We think we provide a benefit because of the use and the ability to use it year round to additional convention uses that are either booked, or available with a larger scale. They use the deck, what we call the field. We think that's a big part of it. There's gaming opportunities. There's, obviously concert opportunities that I had mentioned in general to the residency piece. And I think there's corporate uses because by design, I think we'd want to have, very corporate friendly ballpark and an entertainment park that can be used. And it's really about using it X number of days, to produce Y revenue that justifies building a private ballpark. It's just a math problem.
Mm-hmm. You kind of mentioned the name Justin Timberlake. Isn't Justin Timberlake involved in your endeavors?
Yeah, Justin's an investor and he's on our music industry board. He's very supportive of what we're doing. I think he understands the vision. We also, Darius Rucker has joined on as well. So we're excited about that, especially with the CMAs. I think he's supportive of our efforts. Eddie George is another person that we're just very fortunate to get involved with his, in this opportunity with his skill set. I think by design, our structure and why we raise local money and we're raising money to do this really is to make it a local, really grassroots effort and let everybody participate in a fractional share of what we participate in, our fractional share, of one of those four verticals, and specifically having the opportunity to have a minor interest in an MLB team.
Awesome. And you mentioned you're kind of on this 3-year plan in year 2, and Gina asked in the chat, like kind of really what your timeline is moving forward and how tentative that is, how solidified that is. Walk us through that.
So our 3-year business plan, we're going in the 2nd year. We're on task. Obviously COVID, changes things a little bit. I think it provides opportunities in some regard and certain limitations in others. I think from a budgetary perspective, it's not a bad thing for the potential of getting a team here and the opportunity to do something in real estate might be a benefit. The last year or our 3rd year is really geared towards putting a proposal in front of Major League Baseball owners through the executives at the winter meetings. So if we can't be successful in identifying a site, having a plan for the build a ballpark, having our organization complete and our proposal complete to Major League Baseball by the end of the year, it's likely that Major League Baseball is going to pass on this market. So the pressure really starts getting applied to, Nashville, Davidson County, Williamson County, Rutherford County, that, give us a proposal, help us, have the opportunity to provide this asset, to the market and do what we've built. We basically have built the infrastructure to drive the objective. And, our third year is all about, just making sure that we're finishing out that proposal and that we have a location identified.
A question in the chat from Bryn that I think is really interesting is, beyond MLB, do you see any other gaps in the Nashville tourism and entertainment market in comparison to other second-tier cities?
Yeah, it's a really good question that I don't know that I'm qualified to answer. I mean, my focus really is based on, the baseball entertainment side of this. So, the other markets that I looked at in the U.S., it was all centered around the four things that I had mentioned to you and the revenue generation of a team. So, if there's a hole, I can't find it. And maybe maybe he could email me or call me separately and tell me what I'm missing.
Yeah, Nashville does have a lot for sure. I'm really kind of a unique thing about what you're doing is you're trying to bring the first MLB team that would honor the Nashville Stars and the first team to honor the Negro Leagues. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about that and what you're trying to do and why?
Yeah, I mean, behind me is a photo. If anybody can see it, is the original photo that I came across when I first started doing the research in the market. I think part of our objective was to create an asset, and an asset is tied to a story, right? Everybody loves a good story. The history of baseball in every state, specifically in Nashville, it runs pretty deep and, and long. So I was just in search of finding a story. Then, we came across names we wouldn't use or couldn't use. And then I saw this photo and connected with a guy, Skip Nipper, who actually owns the original photo. I have it, and I looked at it, stared at it for a while, and these four gentlemen. And what's intriguing about this is when you really stare at it long enough, you can imagine the stories that actually happened during that period of time. And they start to unfold as you start to do more research in the market. So I contacted Tim Corbin and obviously Dave Stewart, who's a part of our group. And Tim is very connected with David Williams, the former athletic director and vice chancellor who passed away. And then we did a ton of research with the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum and Bob Kendrick, which I've had a long relationship with Bob. And what fascinated me is what you don't know, right? What you think you know and what you don't know. And then how that connects to this market specifically. There's such a long history to that name and to that period of time. And one of the things that fascinated me with David Williams was, his commitment to how sports affected society, then Jackie Robinson, everything that was happening during that period of time for the civil rights movement, and the potential of that happening again now around a team that really these guys played for the love of the game, right? Because you had to. And the history behind it and the connection behind it is it's part of our DNA. It really is our DNA. And we're really committed to diversity and inclusion. But the one thing that was really emphasized by David, and he will always be a part of this organization, was equity, right? And the opportunity to provide an equity position, from across the board. So we've worked very hard on our investment group, on a diversity, equity, inclusion committee, and with people involved within our organization to make sure that from the beginning throughout this whole process, and it's not just black and white, it's, it's race and gender, sexual preference, it's just across the board, right? We have a really unique opportunity to do something that we have a reason to stand together. And I think Major League Baseball has an opportunity to do something instead of reactive, proactive, and take its place in history. And really, I think at this point in this country, that's not a bad thing, right? Because in theory, we can all go to a baseball game, Republican, Democrats, independents, whatever, and just have a hot dog and enjoy a game and, get along for 2.5 hours. So, I mean, we're very excited about the opportunity to promote and honor the Nashville Stars.
I love that. Can you expand a little bit more upon the history of Nashville? Oh, Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Can you expand a little bit more upon the history of Nashville baseball? I think our audience might be slight baseball fans, but they're more business owners, and I'd love kind of a deeper knowledge of what that history looks like.
Well, there's a book that I read every book that I found when I came to the market. One specifically was Baseball in Nashville, written by Skip Nipper. If you should look it up, or I'll send it to you and you can share it with a group. It's fascinating, right? Because, way back in the beginning of time, this market was one where Babe Ruth came through here, Hank Aaron played here, and, a lot by train, but, whether it was, Greer or Sulphur or other locations, and barnstorming or leagues being formed. And even in the Negro leagues, it wasn't really as organized as you would think in today's world, right? It was very, very disconnected. But Nashville always had a place for people that they would stop through on their way to spring training. And just, it's just got a fascinating history that I'll be happy to share the books I read. And, it's if you're into that, and David Ewing was also a fascinating resource as well.
Cool. Yeah, I'd love to share that with the group. Another question from the chat is, are there companies in Nashville that you feel are really aligned with the MLB and Stars spirit? As you're really trying to make this a grassroots and local pursuit, maybe who have you already partnered with, and who do you think are companies that you'd like to bring on board to make this happen?
Well, it's more than just Nashville. We look at this as the Nashville market area. This is a Tennessee opportunity which extends into parts of Kentucky and Alabama. It's really about the Stars, right? It's not about Nashville. I think at the end of the day, we're promoting a brand, and that's the brand. And I think the companies that we'd like to get involved with are, we would like to make this part of everybody's team, where individuals, companies, corporations that are here, have been here forever, or are coming to town, being a part of this opportunity and really bringing everybody together.
Awesome. We had another question in the chat. If you're doing anything to partner with Vanderbilt baseball, since they've been so successful, and do the universities in town come into play at this at all, or what does that look like?
Yeah, both universities and kids organizations, and then also we have a big emphasis on teachers. That's it's going to be a big push for us. So on Vanderbilt specifically, Tim Corbin's on our advisory board. And has been really helpful since the beginning of us looking at the market. But we want to reach out to UT and Belmont and Austin P. Everybody. It's a like I said, it's a market area relationship in college baseball. Specifically in the youth market, we're doing quite a bit with Ro Coleman and his group, Empowerment Pursuit. Ro is very dedicated to do what the RBI program is meant to do in this market. And the RBI program's had a few bumps.
What is RBI?
It's a program sponsored by Major League Baseball, and it's really for inner city underprivileged kids to have the opportunity to play baseball. It works in most markets. In some markets, it just doesn't. In Major League Baseball obviously supports it. Ro Coleman, former Vanderbilt player, I think a lot of people know, and Jared Parker and others, put together a program called Empowerment Pursuit, and we're working closely with them to really focus on them, and then reaching out and down into the community throughout, and providing opportunities. They're working on, we're currently working with them and Wilson, the brand Wilson, to sponsor a Nashville Stars scout team, and a location at some point in Davidson County that they'll, provide, programs and clinics and sponsorships for kids to play baseball and softball. So it's not just, it's girls and boys. And, we're excited about that.
Another question in the chat from Joe is, I think you kind of already answered this a little bit, but what does this mean for the AAA team in town and this stadium that the Sounds just built?
Well, like I said, I think bonding will have to be part of factored into our equation of our obligations to Metro, the city. We hope to work with them, and we think that there's an opportunity for both teams to exist in the market and complement each other under a program. And, we think that Nashville's in the market area is a series of neighborhoods. Unfortunately, with COVID, I don't think they had the opportunity to really explore their options that they have over there with all the new wonderful things that were built around that ballpark, for fans to experience. But look, they're here first and we're very supportive and they're very successful. And they're a big part of why I think Major League Baseball has an interest in being in Nashville.
Hmm. Shifting gears a little bit to talk about COVID and this pandemic, how has that affected your plans?
Well, I mean, I think as far as our feasibility analysis, I mean, we're in the middle of doing that. So I think we carefully looked at how does that affect it. And we just sort of took a zero sum approach, meaning that it's just a complete shutdown and work backwards from there. We all hope that there's a vaccine. We all hope that, things get back to, relatively normal in the future. I think our plans are, at best playing here 2024, more realistically 2025. And, I think you have to take that into account as we look at things. As it relates to our direct impact, I think, again, it affects us in budgetary ways. We're not going to do a lot of things that we had planned on doing on the market. I think it helps us further focus on real estate opportunities and locations that could be of more benefit, to the city, given where the city's positioned financially. In the county. So I think that it may be an opportunity. I think from a Major League Baseball perspective, I think it's hurt that industry significantly. And there might be more of an inclination to consider expansion earlier. And, and so I think that might factor in a positive way. But, as far as, we're physically in an office. We have been since September 1st. We're in the Bridge Building over by Nissan Stadium. We've watched the town shut down. We've watched construction continue. I don't think construction slowed down at all. I think, I watched the Four Seasons being built, a floor or two, a week. So I think I think Nashville's poised to recover, quickly. But, again, we take it serious. We wear masks. We have National Stars masks. So if anybody wants to support us, MLBmusiccity.com, or send me an email and I'll get you as many masks as you want to wear, and to whomever you want to give masks to. So we do take it very serious.
I love it. We love the branded masks. Everybody needs a mask nowadays. I lose mine all the time. I think you touched on this a bit before too, but it was asked again in the chat of, show and tell. Check it out, everyone. What's the best way to get a mask? Should I come and grab a box and bring it to the EC?
You should come and grab a box and you should bring it. So.
All right, we'll set it up. And so not everyone has to come harass you. They can come harass me instead. How does that sound?
I'll give you a bag of masks.
Perfect. Like I was saying, I think you touched on this briefly before, but it was asked again in the chat, kind of the options for locations. And I'd be interested to hear of like the different options for locations. What are kind of the pros and cons as you're looking at the real estate opportunities?
The 4 locations we're centered on, and possibly 5, and it's part of a proposal we hope to share soon, is really primarily focused around the East Bank, because we think it helps privately finance a ballpark. We think it's a complement to downtown. We think the walkability of having a downtown ballpark is important. I think it could bring the Cumberland River alive. And
where is the East Bank? Sorry, I have no idea what that means.
I didn't know that. So the scrap site, Titan Stadium, all the way up through the River North through Top Golf is, I think, what is common.
So East Nashville then.
Well, but it's also referred to as the East Bank because it's on the Cumberland. So.
Yep.
So I think, bringing I think that's, the primary locations would be obviously the Titans campus and the scrapyard, somewhere in that area, right? And I think that helps. I think it's a benefit, and I think it's a contributor to the Davidson County. I think it helps the Titans meet their objectives. That's my personal opinion. Other locations we're going to consider are TSU. They have a site over there that we're in conversations with them about. We're also looking at Williamson County and have had conversations in Rutherford County. So those are options. And again, if we can identify a location that works for us, and we can show that we can, privately finance a ballpark, within a certain time frame, then I think, this market will get passed up as a Major League Baseball option.
What size kind of venue are you trying to build? Like, how many people do you want to seat?
The capacity is going to be 42,000 in honor of Jackie Robinson. The seating or capacity will be 35 to 37,000, but it'll have the ability to host 42 if need be. And again, the design that the concept, the design we're working on is very much different than a stadium or ballpark that you've seen currently. I think you would not know it's a baseball field until you saw the field itself. We're convinced that, more open area, club level seating, gathering areas, enhanced technology. And it's more about the experience of just being inside the entertainment district and part of what's happening and knowing that a baseball game is going on as well. I'm not sure people, I'm somebody that sits in the seat and watches a game, but I think the way, my kids are and where it's trending, I think it's less likely that people are going to do that, but still available. But I think it's going to be more of an opportunity to really have a place where you feel comfortable bringing your family and with many options.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people are wondering, if they're really excited about what you're doing, bringing MLB here, what's the best way for just someone off the street to get involved?
Well, we're not, from an organizational standpoint, and we get a lot of that because people get misconception is that we're actually a physical organization, that we're up and running and that we've got this massive staff. We really don't. I mean, I'm the managing director of the LLC. David Dombrowski has joined us, as you probably know. And David will focus as helping on our initiative, and then we'll, eventually take over the baseball effort, and potentially with Dave Stewart and Tony La Russa at some point, being involved in other people. But so the employment opportunities don't exist now, but I think in the future, 22, 23, not only that, contract opportunities, consultant opportunities, partnerships, et cetera, there's a lot of that to talk about in the future. If you want to be involved on helping our efforts and supporting it, if you go to our website, sign up for our newsletter, MLBmusiccity.com, you can keep track of what we're doing in the community. We're really making an effort to focus on teachers, like I said, because of other sports, military and police, first responders. I think the teachers is something that we care dearly about. So we try to, as best we can, feature our star of the month in that area throughout the market area. And we honor somebody kind of within our organization. And we also share our plans of what we're doing. And as we get into 21, you'll see a lot more effort from our end in getting more connected to the community, providing, people an opportunity to sign up, be a part of a future, buy a season ticket, be a part of that opportunity as well. We really need to build our grassroots support in this community to show Major League Baseball that, we've got 100,000 people that would love to see, the Nashville Stars, in Nashville.
Mm-hmm. If MLB greenlights Nashville, what is the timeline into making this plan a reality then?
Well, our budgets and our proposals, and again, we have no commitment from them, and we're making a proposal to them. We would love to have the approval of the market approval by the end of 2021 at the winter meetings. That's our plan. Conditioned upon all the things that are required to meet their requirements, which are the financing behind the team itself, building the capital stack around that, and, disclosing, the people that are involved potentially on the control interest side, the real estate piece, the ballpark piece, and then obviously the media piece connects to that because it's part of the revenue thing. And whether, we're conditioned to have to negotiate with Tampa Bay because they might be the relocation team to this market if they don't get their deal worked out in Tampa or Montreal and or Orlando is not successful. So those are the things that, that's really the summary of what our focus is. So to answer your question specifically, like I said, at best, we'd be playing, the National Stars would be playing here in 2024, 2025.
Nice. Someone said, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
Gina had a question. You made a comment that you want to help the Titans rebuild. Can you clarify what you mean by that?
Well, I think the Titans are in a lease, and again, I think that they control the campus that we're thinking about, and the city's bar. They have obviously publicly mentioned that they don't kind of support MLB being on their campus, and they have plans of their own here. We think if we can be successful in privately financing a ballpark, which is really an entertainment venue, it will contribute to the revenues of that campus, and it would help the Titans. Say, for example, they wanted to build a new stadium or they wanted to do improvements to that stadium. The city, I think, has an obligation to them. I think NFL would probably put money into it, but I think if they truly want to, and I think it's good for everybody, if they wanted to build a new facility, I think we could help contribute to that. I think by what our efforts to use private financing and not any public financing, and potentially partner with a stadium partner, a development partner that could help contribute to some of the infrastructure as well, I think we can help them.
Yeah, I think everyone on this call is really excited. Someone put in the chat, already making connections for you, that Neil Liebman, the owner of the Texas Rangers, is an investor in his business and wanted to know if you're working with him and wanted to get in touch. Sorry to put you on the spot, but it sounds like an exciting offer.
No, I mean, I think if somebody's in, and if somebody, we're still in, taking investments in through the end of the year. We've obviously reduced our budget, where our budget's around $5 million to run the operations of this. We're north of $3 million, so we're going to close the round by the end of the year, this year. And, you can email me, john.loar at, mlbmusiccity.com if you want more information on that. If there's, and our minimum's 25,000 because of the way that investment was structured. And again, it's based on getting community involvement, across our market area. But we're also working with a group, and I don't know if you referenced that, Nashville Baseball Investment Group, with Patrick Johnson and Eddie Hamilton, specifically connected to, the diversity investment side of what we're trying to accomplish. And we've allowed them $250,000 as a carve out in this investment. And their investment, I think minimums are $5,000. And so you can get in touch with Patrick Johnson if there's somebody interested. You can email me and I'll forward that information to Patrick. So again, we're trying to make sure that, we're providing that partnership, true partnership on the equity side for a diverse group.
That's really exciting. You made a comment earlier about how sports affected society. And I think that's been a theme throughout this, is what MLB will do for Nashville. But from let's say a social society lens, what do you hope, this team is really going to add? What sort of culture will it breed in Nashville?
Well, it's interesting. I'm not from here. I'm from California, born and raised. And, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I don't really experience, I think, the history of the South. Obviously I read about it, and I understand it as best I could. But when you come to the South and you live here for a couple of years, you really understand that there's a rich, there's a deep history. I don't know how rich it is, but there's a deep history here of civil rights issues, right? And I think there's a lot of information that's here. I think, and just to be completely transparent, it was not, we have always focused on, with Dave Stewart, and Dave's a very vocal component, the diversity and inclusion and in sports. And every venture that we've been a part of, it's always been, part of what our objectives would be, because Dave's very committed to that. When I found this photo, it changed everything, because what it did is it really made us realize, through the relationship with David Williams, that, wait a minute, there's an equity component to this, real equity. That sports has had an effect on society with Jackie Robinson and during that period of time for civil rights. There's a story here that you can tell of, that's not a horrific story, right? There's bad things that happened during that period of time. But if you take baseball specifically, these guys that played in the African-American Negro Leagues played for the love of the game, right? They would go to Mexico and Canada before they play in the United States. They weren't welcome, right? And if you look at our website and the history and some of the things that we've uncovered with the bus and the bus driver, it's fascinating, the stories that kind of behind that, and they just kind of keep being told. So we've been doing this for 2 years, and we really felt this would be of interest to Major League Baseball. It would help our objectives, against any competition that we would have in the market. And there's a great story behind it. And then it was 2 years ago, right? And then the George Floyd thing happened, and all of a sudden, this conversation is not going away, right? So knowing that, we've been very careful with our brand. We are very connected with the Negro Leagues partnership, with the Baseball Museum on our partnership. We work closely with Ebbets. We're really concentrating on a potential relationship with, a designer that's connected with Fear of God, Jerry Lorenzo Manuel, on doing some things unique, as it relates to our brand in advance. And I think the underlying thing is, and we've been asked to take positions on Black Lives Matter in a bunch. We've had an investor, pull out of our investment because we wouldn't. And our position is, yeah, Black Lives Matter. If you ask me if white lives matter, sure. But what we're trying to do is, it's baseball, it's sports. And the impact that sports has on society then, can it happen again now, right? Can we all come together and find a reason to stand together and unite around a sport and an entertainment event, and get along? Like I talked before, it doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, independent, black, white, male, female, it's baseball, right? And the history of sports and its impacts on society. And David Williams said it best. He said, if we can do that again, it's beyond, it's this opportunity, and he hits his quote, this opportunity is bigger than a game of baseball. And, we truly carry that forward in our mission.
That's awesome. Thanks, John. Another question from the chat from Parker is, if you could talk a little bit about the popularity of baseball relative to the NFL, NBA, et cetera, and if you think that anything needs to be improved to get more eyes on the sport of baseball.
Yeah, Major League Baseball, I think, well, a lot about what you read is that, the attendance is down, but revenues are up if you pay attention to the numbers overall. And I think what's attractive about Nashville is what I mentioned earlier. This is a market where, if you go to a Titans game and the Chicago Bears are in town, man, that's half Chicago Bear fans, right? And you walk down the streets and look at the hotels, and it's an exciting spirit. And I think that contributes to our success here, because we feel if the Red Sox are in town, or the Yankees, or the Giants, or the Dodgers, people are going to put Nashville on their calendar. They're going to come here for 3 days. Maybe they go to one ball game, or maybe they go to all of them. But I think the excitement around the entertainment district, the family environment, I think is really beneficial to not only to Nashville, but I think it helps with Major League Baseball, because it puts bodies in the seats, right? So I think that's what you're looking for, is the activity. You don't want a Tampa Bay situation. You want a St. Louis Cardinals situation here. We really look at this market as a St. Louis Cardinal market. It's a tremendous baseball market. And we feel that, and again, in baseball, if you have opposing fans, it kind of works, right? I got you today, you get me tomorrow. It's 3 games instead of sort of 1 game. And I think it's a great opportunity for us.
Awesome. I'd love to transition if people want to unmute themselves to ask any questions, so it's not just always me talking. That would be awesome. James, do you want to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Yes, hi. So there was talks about a location near TSU, is that correct?
Yeah, well, we've talked to TSU about their location that they have. I think it's, the best way I can describe it is sort of their ag campus area.
Right, right.
There's a large piece of property over there that we're going to factor in our evaluation.
Okay. The question is, how do you think if there were a viable option that you could use that to help the businesses there to grow and increase the value in North Nashville?
I don't have all those answers for you. I think we're in the early stages of really evaluating that site. And again, unfortunately, it's all about, can you privately finance a ballpark, right? And can you justify that through enough area or development or use or revenue to be able to accomplish that? And is it the best use for that site? I don't know. But our development partner, who we'll be announcing in the next couple of weeks, and our ASM Global, who is our partner and stadium partner, working with them closely. And Moody Nolan is on board with us. Eddie George is on board with us. We're going to really evaluate not only that site, but all the sites, and potentially considering just sort of putting our information out there in the market and saying, look, why don't you present something to us, instead of us trying to present something to you. You tell us what you want to offer us so that we can help, make this happen.
Okay, thank you.
Jason, I think you had a question.
Yeah, Mr. Loar, one of your number one fans that you've never met me yet, but I just wanted to tell you, I am so backing what you're doing. Really proud of what you're bringing to the city. I moved from St. Louis 8 years ago, my wife and I, and we've been in the Nashville Entrepreneur Center for 8 years. But Tony La Russa actually brought us to Nashville. So we had season tickets to 2011 World Series. And when Tony won that, fulfilled our baseball fantasy, and we were able to get out of St. Louis to move to Nashville. But I love what you're saying about St. Louis, because it is a baseball town. I grew up my entire life there. And I love how you guys are framing that story, because it is magic in the community. I think what you're doing especially is massive. And so just want to let you know we're absolutely supporting what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Pleasure to meet you, by the way.
You too. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jason. Anyone else want to unmute themselves and ask a question?
I had a question. Hi, Mr. Loar. Thanks for being on. Learned a lot today. I grew up in North Carolina, so not as big of a baseball market, but I was curious if you found how Nashville stacks up comparatively. We sometimes get lumped in with the Southeast in comparison to other markets like in Atlanta, but I do feel like, kind of piggybacking on what Jason was saying, we see some of the behaviors in our market being more like the Midwest. And I'm curious, just from your perspective, having worked kind of across the country and looked at a lot of different markets, where Nashville's peers are. Are we truly among our peers in the Southeast, or are we more like a Midwestern city? Are we more like kind of an outlier city that might otherwise be out there?
It's interesting because you almost have to move here and live here to answer that question. And when I first looked at the market, my impression was really, it was just a business deal for me. And I looked at it one way, right? When I moved here, you start to understand what the kind of the underlying culture here is, and the people and the friendliness, and just what people always tell you about. And I've been through Nashville 10, 15 times over my career. But actually living here and spending time here and living downtown for 2 years, I just moved to Franklin recently. But, my wife and I lived here. My daughter was at the University of Kentucky, which was convenient for us. And then just learning about the market. I mean, I don't know if there's another place on this planet like this place. It is one of those places where everybody that I talk to that, we have to tell people you can't, well, COVID, but you can't visit us, right? And everybody wants to come here and visit and just be a part of what's going on. And the thing that I'm really intrigued by is the neighborhoods, and it's just an interesting place. And I would have never even discovered that, just coming in and coming out of downtown. So it's a place where, frankly, I thought I was going to be here for a couple of years, 3 years, do a business deal and move on. Where man, it's in my soul, with the Nashville Stars now and the commitment that I have to, to David Williams, and I'm going to stay here. We bought a house in Franklin. My wife, longer story, grew up here in Nashville until she was in 5th grade and went to Ransom Middle School, which doesn't exist anymore. So anyhow, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I agree. It is. I came here, I thought I was going to be here for 2 years. It's been 10. So it kind of grows on you. It really does.
Awesome. Any final questions before we wrap up? Darius?
Yes, so I have been a long-term baseball fan for all of my life. My grandfather played, my father played, and always loved baseball. But as the generations continue to come, I've noticed that, a lot of my friends and also family members are not as interested in the sport. And understanding where you are with bringing baseball to Nashville, and I may be wrong about the numbers, but noticing that you're bringing baseball to Nashville and some of the individuals involved, how are you generating more interest from young minority professionals in this industry who are interested in baseball and also looking forward to being involved?
That's a good question, Darius. And again, I don't have all the answers either, but I know the trends, and it's always been part of our, mission with Dave Stewart involved too. And, you've watched the trends over the years, decrease specifically in the areas of Black players, right? Young kids playing the game. And there's a lot of reasons why, and it depends on the market area. And I think a lot of it has to do with programs, two things. One, visibility, right? And just like, hey man, I can do that, and I can be a part of that. And the second thing is the opportunity, right? And making it reasonable and affordable that, if you don't have the resources, that option is available. So the RBI program, specifically the Roe Coleman, Jared Parker program, Empowerment Pursuit, is 100% geared to providing opportunities to increase that, and Tim Corbin's very committed to this as well. So you have a lot of people that care about this in this market that are involved in this, and that realize that we have to do better, and we can do better by example. And the equity piece is important, but having the conversation, identifying the problem, providing solutions is a pathway to end up, increasing those numbers. And look, Mookie Betts lives here, right? And David Price, and all of a sudden, it's part that, but it's also providing it from the ground up, right? So you want to make it obtainable, achievable, and it's a big commitment to us. And I think look, Major League Baseball has an opportunity to take its place in history. If they choose Nashville and they choose the Nashville Stars, it'd be the first team connected to the Negro Leagues, right? And that conversation never goes away because it's just here. And we honor that. It's a part of our facility. There's a satellite location for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. The history there is not only about the Nashville Stars, but other teams that played in this market connected to the Negro Leagues, and then just about the Negro Leagues in general. There's an opportunity to educate people about that. So it's a great question. I don't really have the answer. All I'm trying to do is I wake up every morning and it's left foot, right foot, go, right? So I'm about trying to provide solutions, and I'm not, and that's really what our focus of our whole organization is about.
Thank you so much for what you're doing and bringing baseball to Nashville. I look forward to the team being here and being involved as much as I can and talking to individuals who are already committed to your team.
No, I appreciate it. And again, I don't mind if anybody, you can share my email. I'm happy to sit down with people when we can. Happy to do Zoom calls. As far as, opportunities in the future, there's going to be plenty. Our objectives are pretty tight right now. It's just, capital, operation proposal, and getting a site identified. So we're a little bit limited in our bandwidth. Look, it's all about fan support. It doesn't work without it. So if you have a comment, a question, or an opinion, let me know.
Awesome. Well, we're at 1 o'clock. Thank you so much for a ton of great questions and audience participation. Thank you so much for John for coming to share. And I will send a follow-up email with this recording. And John said it. I'll share his email, so don't harass him too much, though. I know you're a busy guy. But I appreciate everyone and hope to see you all soon.
Yeah, thank you, and appreciate it. Follow us on, sign up for our site and follow us if you can. You get a newsletter the first of every month, first, second, or third.
Awesome. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.